fair play through. I didn't pace my breathing well at the end. I don't want to take that breath there between the last two measures. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it out and make sure I fix that. So this one is interesting because maybe it's just these two studies. I feel like these in B major are actually a bit easier than the ones in E major, even though it's one additional sharp. So I'm going to go from the beginning. I've marked a couple things in places where I want to remember accidentals. But this one, the thing that makes it tricky is knowing when to like fudge your fingerings a little bit. I play on here as if I don't have the alternate D sharp E flat / G sharp A flat key because most students don't have it. If you play an older instrument, you likely don't have that key. This is the first instrument I've owned that has that key. So I'm still getting the hang of it, but I like to play as if I don't have it. That way it can be more relatable and accessible to somebody who doesn't have that key. But I kind of haven't gotten the habit of using it, and even with this little bit of like plastic piping that I had put on it so that I can make it a little easier to reach, it still doesn't feel super comfortable. I kind of just more in the habit of using slides and kind of like modified fingerings to get where I need to go. But that's just because that's how I learned. That's the type of instrument I originally learned on. So I'm gonna go back from the beginning, check in with my tempo a little bit. This one is not quite as slow as you might think. I feel like for myself, but I often hear it with students, that Andante gets misinterpreted as being really slow, and it's not. Adagio is quite a bit slower. Lento is definitely slower. Largo is much slower. Andante is like walking speed. Like you're not power walking. It's not like a super brisk walk, but you're not like dragging your heels either. So I think one of the biggest challenges with starting this one on a recital or audition or exam would be making sure you don't start too slow. And I feel like quarter note equals 60 can be tricky to find. To me, I think this tempo range, this area, is where I'm more likely, if I'm nervous, to start slower. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen. I'll just go from the beginning and take it in chunks. So I didn't do a good job of fudging that fingering, but I was thinking about this crescendo here at the beginning. I want to make sure I start a true piano, but this crescendo, I'm thinking mezzo piano plus, maybe mezzo forte. I think it's okay for this one to be a little more dramatic, and I don't want to err on the side of making it too quiet all the way through, because I feel like this here that we're coming off on, that first mezzo forte, should be like a very big change from that pianissimo we end the first big phrase on. And I think I'm going to put my first breath mark there. I'll go from the beginning one more time. Oops, I messed it up. And while we don't want to start too slow, I feel like this is one where you can definitely let the phrasing help you manipulate the tempo. It doesn't have to be, like when it gets louder, I think it's okay to let the tempo push ahead a bit. And when it gets softer, I think it's okay to let it pull back a bit. I think it's not written in, but I think I want this to decrescendo so that we're back to kind of mezzo piano or so to prepare for that next crescendo. phrase. I like that phrase. It's kind of weird and interesting and a bit longer than you expect it to be. So I want to make sure I pace it well. That time I thought was okay, but not exactly what I want. Probably going to need a breath there. And I think I'm going to go ahead and mark that. I want the time to come back just a little bit there. I think this bar, we can push ahead a bit and pull back a bit. And I think these two bars, we're going to push ahead a bit, and then here, pull back again as we head here, which is kind of our return down the octave. But I think to make it different, I want to crescendo into that. Actually, I'm not sold on pulling back there. I'm going to play it a couple times and see which one works better. Try it pushing forward all the way through that phrase. But there was another spot I was going to add a breath, possibly there, but I'm not 100%. Actually like that better. I reserve the right to change my mind as I continue working on it, but I think I like it continuing forward through there. And then kind of arriving, I guess, a tempo at that sort of recap but the octave lower. But I don't know about dynamics through there. Should we kind of arrive at the piano at the end of that next line, or should it be a subito piano? I think I want to try kind of relaxing into it. Now, I do want to note the poco meno there, and I think most everybody will want to lean into that because the next section's a bit tricky, and Haidt did keep the poco meno in his version, so I think it's going to be very useful because it gets a bit tricky through here. I made a mistake through there, but I think that timing was better. And I want to pull back just a hair, pull back just a hair at the end of that bar to make sure that I'm not rushing my way through this next group of 16ths. I'm going to mark that because I did that backwards last time too. That was the other spot I wanted to mark before, that E sharp that carries through. Because I was getting it right about half the time and missing it about half the time. but I don't want to breathe here. So I'm going to mark it out and try and break that habit. So let's see, I want to make sure I get rid of that breath because it's going to make me late coming off that 16th rest if I breathe there. So I think instead, maybe I'll breathe here. No, I think I'm going to breathe here after the high D sharp. Let's see if that's better. Fine. I just want to avoid taking that breath, but make sure I get a big breath before. And that way I'm not late on that 16th rest. I'm going to do that whole section one more time. Dynamics. We don't have much there. It's marked piano, and that's literally it. So I think I want to keep it within that kind of piano realm. So here, if this is kind of the peak of this phrase, I don't want to get any louder than mezzo piano. I think this can kind of come down a little bit, and that next bit can come up a little bit. But I think this can continue kind of, not really getting much louder, but I want to keep it on the louder side. And by louder, I mean within this kind of mezzo piano range. I want to work on connecting this poco meno section with the ending. So I'm going to go back to the poco meno. So I'm going to go back to the meno mosso and try and connect this together. Changed my mind. I'm going to put a bit of decrescendo there. So this is back to more piano. And then I can kind of crescendo to mezzo piano at the end of that phrase. And that tempo one, I think I want to go back to piano. I find it strange that at the beginning of this study, Rose gives so much information in terms of dynamics, but then like halfway through, it's like he gave up and quit giving us information on the dynamics. So I'm going to have to kind of piece it together myself. So at tempo one, no, I'm going to go back and do that again because I want to make sure, not the whole thing. I want to go back to the C sharp, the line before, the beginning of the line before the tempo one. Actually, I'm not sure about that either. Let me look at the height addition. He did the opposite, and I think he actually might be right. I think I'm going to do that as well. Although he did have it kind of peak around mezzo forte in a couple places, and forte even, but I don't want to get quite that loud through here. If anything, I think that I kind of like having a forte there, went back a bit, and then here, the fermata on the D sharp towards the end. But I think I do like this. Kind of decrescendoing towards a pianissimo at the end of that phrase. And then tempo one, he had started at mezzo forte, but actually no, I'm gonna go with that. I like that. So I'm gonna go back to the meno again. But I want to take more of a pause on that rest. So I'm going to kind of write it in like it's a grand pause and not rush into that tempo 1. I'm not so sure about the pacing on that little kind of a cadenza descending chromatic scale. It definitely doesn't work if there's water under that alternate F sharp key. And also, I don't know if this is the official fingering, but it's the one I use for the F sharp to G sharp trill. I'm doing the chromatic F sharp and then holding it down and trilling with the G sharp key. It's a little bit stuffy, but I think it works okay. It was the one I tried that sounded the best, so that's the one I'm going to go with. Yeah, I think that this should all move forward a bit without the finger fumble. But I like kind of moving towards the, maybe pulling back a bit there, but moving towards that D sharp with the fermata. I think that's kind of maybe the most important part of this section. I don't know if I'd call it like the peak phrase of the piece, but it's definitely important here. Trill too long, but I think I am, instead of kind of crashing into that trill, I'm going to pull back a bit before it. But I want to do more of that diminuendo too. Part of me wants to crescendo all the way through there, but I don't want to do that. I do want to pull back and decrescendo. I'm going to write it in those ticks so I don't forget how long I'm counting that trill. I like that this one ends kind of quietly and gently, even after that big chromatic moment. I'm going to put the poco meno through to the end into one chunk and see how that works flow-wise. Oops, I messed up. A spot, I feel like half the time I get it just fine, and then there's this one spot that if I don't look at it, if I just kind of play it, I don't mess it up. If I look at it too closely, I make a mistake. So I kind of want to bracket it just so that I don't forget that it's there. I want to like try and approach it the same way every time instead of letting it take me by surprise sometimes. unintentional breath, but that one was better than the first time through. But I don't want to skip that breath. For some reason, I get there and almost want to like not rush my way into that D sharp, or maybe I am rushing my way into it, but I kind of want to skip over that moment to breathe, and I don't want to do that. I want to get a nice big breath there so I can finish strong. So I'm going to go back to the beginning and play it through, stopping again to pick up anything else that needs work. To forte at the beginning of the, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line. So that I do want to change, but I did kind of change some of the dynamic markings and phrase markings I'd made before, and I think that's okay. I hope that when you all are practicing that you don't it's okay to let your interpretation evolve. You may have a teacher that when you're playing this for them, they're like, oh no, that's wrong, don't play it that way, play it this way instead. And I think there are times where you might just be wrong, but music is so subjective. I feel like if you can really demonstrate your choice in a way that makes sense, there's still going to be people who don't like it, and even people who get personally offended by the fact that you played it differently. I guess you just have to decide if you care, But it's okay, I think, to play something one way and then really plan to practice it and plan it a certain way, but then come back and say, actually, no, I want to do something different. I think that's okay. And even within the same practice session, I think it's still good to try out multiple interpretations to kind of just kind of let it be. Now, if there's a interpretation that you want, and it's more like, I want to break this habit around the way I play this chunk to make sure I play it this other way because that's what I consider the goal. That's how I want it to sound. Then I think that's also okay. It's okay to go back and fix it. But I think allow yourself to have some fluidity with the interpretation to kind of just play it and figure it out, And even in pieces that I know very well that I've played multiple times, I still play them differently, Sometimes I'll think, why did I do it like that? I want to try it this other way instead, But I do want to get to that forte. So I'm going to rewrite this crescendo and this forte and make it look a bit better. And hopefully I won't miss it this time. It wasn't like I missed it. It was more like I just didn't do quite enough. I didn't quite get to that spot. So I'm going to go from the mezzo forte at the end of the second line. Add an extra note somewhere. I think that was much better. I liked that better anyway. I'm gonna keep going. No, I'm still rushing the ending a bit. So I think I want to start pulling back in that chromatic descent a bit sooner. And I really want to think about placing that start of that trill. That's better. I do want to continue to work on my pacing through the end though, because I don't want it to sound rushed or crunched. So I'm going to check in with my tempo. I think I might go ahead and play it one last time